Maybe you clicked on this just out of curiosity, or maybe, without even realizing, you were looking for a quiet corner, a place where the words don't rush and the silences are part of the story too. I wrote this with care, like stitching together pieces of memory, pain, and small discoveries, hoping that somewhere in it you might see a piece of yourself. And if you do, even for a heartbeat, stay. Listen for as long as you can, and if it feels right, leave a little trace that you were here. It doesn't have to be big. Sometimes a simple, "I'm here" in the comments, a quiet share with someone who might need it, or tapping that little heart or subscribe button is enough to let me know this story found you. They say storms begin in the sky. That night, ours began in the floorboards. I still remember the heavy, uneven footsteps of my grandfather pounding across the kitchen tiles. A rhythm I'd learned to fear before I even knew what fear was. My grandmother's voice followed, sharp, clipped, dripping with something colder than the rain waiting outside. Her eyes always reminded me of frost on glass, beautiful if you didn't know how it burned to touch. The house looked warm to anyone passing on the street. Curtains drawn, a soft, yellow light in the windows. But for me, it was a place where heroes didn't exist. Not the kind I drew with capes and shields in my sketchbook. Here, there was no room for heroes at all, only people who liked to crush them. Mom and I had come here because we had nowhere else. Her job was gone, our apartment lease was up, and every shelter we called had already said the same thing. We're full. I didn't mind the idea of visiting my grandparents. At least, not until the moment I saw their faces when Mom asked if we could stay. Grandpa leaned against the doorframe, looking at us like we were stray dogs who'd wandered in from the rain. His lips curled into a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "Leeches always crawl back," he said. Grandma didn't even bother pretending to be kind. She scanned Mom from head to toe, her nose wrinkling as if the sight was a bad smell she couldn't get rid of. "You just keep proving we were right about you," she said, and the words felt like a cold draft crawling into my bones. Mom's hand tightened around mine, and she thanked them anyway. We stepped inside, our wet shoes squeaking on the floor, and I told myself we'd only be here for a few days. That night, as I unpacked my pencils and paper, I heard them in the kitchen. Their voices were low, but not low enough. "Came crawling back, just like I said," Grandpa muttered. "Good," Grandma replied. "Let it. We'll teach her all over again." Her tone made it sound like teaching was just another word for breaking. I didn't understand all the words, but I understood enough. The storm was already here. The rain just hadn't started yet. In my drawings, castles were warm. The windows glowed, and the people inside smiled. But this one, my grandparents' house, felt like the walls were built from ice. Even the air seemed to push us back, like it didn't want us there. Breakfast was the first reminder. 2 plates on the table, 2 glasses of juice, both placed neatly in front of my grandparents. Mom and I just stood there, waiting for something. A nod, a plate, a spot at the table. It never came. Grandma picked up her fork, not looking at us. Grandpa began eating. The sound of cutlery on ceramic felt louder than it should have, sharp and metallic in the silence. Mom finally turned, her face tight but calm, and guided me to the kitchen counter where she poured us cereal from a box that tasted like cardboard. After they were done, Grandma left her plate in the sink without a word. Mom moved toward it automatically, washing it with slow, careful movements, as if scrubbing too hard might shatter the silence and make things worse. I stood by the doorway, watching the water run over her hands until they turned red from the heat. When she caught my eyes, she smiled. the kind of smile that looked like it hurt to hold, and bent down to hug me. "Just a few days, baby," she whispered into my ear. "Only a few days." Her breath was warm, but her arms were trembling. I wanted to make her smile for real, so I sat in the corner of the living room with my pencils and paper. If I couldn't give her a real hero, maybe I could draw one. A hero in a blue cape, holding a shield big enough to block anything bad. A hero who looked a little like her. I thought if she could see it, maybe the picture could protect us. That's when I noticed Grandpa. He was in the garage, the door half open, his back turned to me. In his hands, he held something long and heavy, the crowbar. He turned it slowly, like it was an old friend he hadn't seen in a while. The light from the small window caught the rust along its curve. He set it against the wall, right by the doorframe, within easy reach. And for the first time, I wondered if the storm I felt last night might have more than just words in it. I had just finished the cape. It was the brightest blue I could make with the stub of a pencil I'd been using since before we came here. Mom was going to like this one. The shield was bigger than before, and the hero's face actually looked a little like hers. I was thinking about what she might say when Grandma's shadow fell over my paper. Her hand was faster than my eyes. One second my hero was there. The next, it was ripped down the middle, the two halves fluttering to the carpet like dead leaves. "Art!" she sneered, her voice slicing sharper than the paper's edge. "You think you're special? You're a mistake. Just like your mother, pretending to matter." For a moment, my ears rang. My chest felt hot, but my hands were cold. I stared at the shredded pieces on the floor, the torn shield, the crooked smile that was supposed to protect us. Then Mom was there. I didn't see her cross the room, but suddenly she was between us, her back to me, her voice shaking but loud enough to make me freeze. "He's a child. You don't talk to him like that." It was the first time I'd heard her speak to Grandma that way. Grandma's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into something almost like a smile, but not the kind you give when you're happy. And then, the sound. From the kitchen came the scrape of a chair's legs tearing against tile. A low grunt. Grandpa's voice, not words yet, just a sound like something heavy was waking up. The air in the room shifted. Grandma didn't turn her head toward him, but the corner of her mouth twitched. I could hear his steps, slow but heavy, coming closer. I clutched the broken halves of my drawing and thought of the crowbar I'd seen in the garage the day before. For the first time, I wasn't just afraid for me, I was afraid for her. The first sound was metal. Not loud, not at first, just the slow drag of the crowbar across the tile, like it was testing the floor before testing us. Then came the footsteps, heavy, final, each one shaking the air, telling me there was no place to hide. Mom didn't move. She stood between me and the sound, her shoulders squared but trembling in tiny bursts. "Move!" Grandpa's voice growled from the doorway. It was the kind of voice that didn't need to shout to be dangerous. From behind him, Grandma's voice floated in, almost casual, almost bored. "Let her get hit. Maybe she'll remember it this time." Mom's arm reached back for me, pulling me tight against her side. I could smell her hair, the faint scent of soap from this morning, now mixed with the sharp tang of fear. Her heartbeat thudded against my cheek, faster than mine, but steady enough to make me believe she wasn't going to let go. The crowbar came down. The sound was sickening. Metal on flesh, a dull thud that seemed to echo inside my head. Mom's body jolted forward, but her arm only tightened around me. "You're safe," she said through clenched teeth, her breath ragged. The second strike landed on her back. She stumbled, nearly falling to her knees, but still kept me wrapped against her. That's when I saw it. a thin line of red blooming through her shirt, creeping outward like it was racing to tell the world what had happened. I looked at her, at the blood, at the way she stayed in front of me even when her legs shook, and in that moment, I knew. My mother wasn't just my mother. She was the hero I'd been trying to draw all along. The rain met us at the door, hard and cold, sliding down the back of my neck before I could even take a breath. Mom's arm stayed tight around me, her other hand gripping our small bag like it was the only thing holding us together. Her breath was hot against the top of my head, quick bursts that matched the pounding of my heart. Our shoes splashed through the puddles along the cracked walkway, water seeping in almost instantly. Each step sounded heavier than the last, the water pulling at us, the cold biting at my skin. "They'll never do that again," Mom said over the rain. Her voice was steady on the words, but there was a tremor underneath, like part of her didn't believe it yet. Or maybe she was daring herself to. Something made me look back. Through the blur of rain, I saw her, Grandma, standing in the yellow light of the front porch. She didn't shout. She didn't call us back. She just stood there with her arms crossed, the edges of her mouth curled upward in a smile that didn't belong to family. The kind of smile that made the rain feel even colder. We kept walking. Past the mailbox, past the end of the street, until the house was gone behind the curtain of water. It was late by the time we found the motel. The neon sign flickered in and out. Vacancy. Like it couldn't decide if we belonged there. The room smelled faintly of bleach and something older, and the blankets were thin enough that I could see the pattern of the bed through them. I sat on the edge of the bed, my wet socks leaving dark circles on the carpet. That was when it hit me. Not the cold, not the rain, but the feeling in my chest. We weren't visiting. We didn't have anywhere to go back to. For the first time in my life, I understood what it felt like not to have a home. The mornings were the hardest. Not because of the thin motel blankets or the hum of the old air conditioner, but because of the sound Mom made when she tried to get out of bed. A sharp inhale, a pause, and then a slow, careful push to her feet. She moved like every step was a question her body didn't want to answer. She didn't say much those first few days. She spent long minutes staring at the wall, then suddenly picking up her phone, stepping outside, and lowering her voice until it was only a murmur. I caught pieces of words through the thin motel door. Lawyer, evidence. Her tone was steady, but there was a tension in it, like she was balancing on a tightrope and couldn't afford to look down. One afternoon, when she was in the bathroom, I saw them. Photographs laid out on the bed. Bruises in deep purples and yellows along her shoulder and back. A cut along her arm I hadn't noticed before. There was one picture where her face was turned away, but I knew it was from that night. The shirt in the image had the same dark patch of red I'd seen spreading after the crowbar hit. Later, I heard her on the phone again, asking someone about old records. She mentioned a school, a hospital, and something about reports that were never followed up. That night, I pretended to sleep as she sat on the edge of my bed. The mattress dipped slightly under her weight. I kept my breathing even, my eyes just barely closed. She thought I couldn't hear her when she whispered. "Not for me," she said, her voice breaking. "This time, it's for you." Her hand brushed my hair back, and for a long moment, she just stayed there. I didn't move, but my chest felt tight. Not from fear, not anymore, but from something heavier. It was the moment I realized Mom wasn't just surviving. She was preparing for a fight. The courthouse looked nothing like I'd imagined. No grand marble stairs or flags fluttering in the wind. just a heavy glass door that reflected our faces back at us. Mine was pale. Mom's was set in a way I hadn't seen before, like she'd locked every fear deep inside. I held onto her coat sleeves so tightly my fingers went numb. Inside, everything smelled faintly of paper and old air. The voices echoed off the walls, bouncing in ways that made even whispers sound loud. Then I saw them. Grandma in a fitted coat, her hair perfect like she was posing for a portrait. Grandpa in a dark suit, the kind people wore to weddings or funerals. They smiled, but not at us. It was the kind of smile you gave when you thought you'd already won. Mom didn't stop walking, but my feet felt heavier when I saw who else was there. Neighbors from the old street. A man with a cane who used to nod at us when we passed. My third-grade teacher, her hair now streaked with gray. Even a woman I barely recognized until Mom whispered, "That's your great-aunt." They were all here, waiting, some with folders clutched to their chests, others just staring at the floor. As we passed the hallway toward the courtroom, I heard it. Low, sharp, just behind us. Grandpa's voice, directed at the tall man in the gray suit beside them. "Just scare a few of them. They'll shut up." I didn't look back, but my stomach turned cold. They weren't just here to fight. They were here to make people disappear, not literally, but the way you erase words from a page until no one remembers they were there. Mom's hand found mine, giving it a squeeze. She didn't say a word, but I think she knew I'd heard. The door to the courtroom opened with a deep, heavy creak. Whatever storm was waiting inside, we were stepping straight into it. At first, they still wore it, the same mask I'd seen my whole life. Grandpa sat with his hands folded, face calm, eyes bored. Grandma's lips stayed curled in that small, polite smile that never reached her eyes. They looked like people who thought they were untouchable. Then the witnesses started speaking. The neighbor with the cane talked about hearing shouting through the walls at night. My old teacher described the days I'd shown up to school with bruises I couldn't explain. My great-aunt's voice shook as she admitted she'd stopped visiting because she was tired of pretending nothing was wrong. I watched their faces change. Grandpa's jaw tightened. Grandma's smile slipped, the corners of her mouth twitching like they couldn't decide whether to flatten into a frown or bare her teeth. Their eyes darted more now. To the judge, to their lawyer, to the people in the room. Then Mom stood. Her voice didn't tremble. She didn't pause or glance down at her hands. She told the court exactly what happened the night of the rain, her words clear and sharp. And when she said, "She told him to let me be hit, to let me remember it," she looked straight at Grandma. I felt my hand tighten around hers before I even realized I was doing it. She gave mine a quick squeeze, never breaking her gaze. By the time the judge spoke, the room felt heavier. The words came one by one, solid and unshakable. No contact. Compensation for damages. I didn't understand all the legal terms, but I understood the look on my grandparents' faces. For the first time, they weren't in control. The mask had cracked, and everyone in that room had seen what was underneath. I didn't see it happen. But I heard about it from Mr. Halpern, our old neighbor, when he called Mom a week after the verdict. "They threw everything out onto the lawn," he said. "Clothes, furniture, boxes, even that ugly armchair your grandma used to guard like it was gold." His voice carried a mix of satisfaction and disbelief. No one stopped to help them. People just walked past. I pictured it. Their castle, standing open, windows bare, rooms echoing without the thick curtains and heavy furniture. A hollow shell where once they had ruled every corner like monarchs of something worth fearing. In my mind, the grand staircase I used to stare at from the bottom was stripped of its carpet. The chandelier above the dining table was gone, leaving only a dusty outline where it had hung. But the part that stayed with me most came later that afternoon. A knock at the motel door. It was Mrs. Kwan, the woman who used to live across the street from them. She held a cardboard box, the kind that had been folded and refolded too many times. "This was by the curb," she said to Mom. "I thought you should have it." Inside were papers, some yellowed and brittle, others crisp and recent. Letters, receipts, reports, even a few photographs. I didn't understand all of it, but I could see enough to know it wasn't just about us. Names I didn't recognize. Dates going back years. Descriptions of injuries. Complaints that had been ignored or silenced. Mom's hands hovered over the pile for a long moment. Then she looked at me, and I could see something in her eyes. Not surprise, not even anger. Determination. The fall of their kingdom wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of the storm they couldn't control. The motel room was quiet that afternoon. No rain, no voices raised in anger. Just the scratch of my pencil on paper. I'd started a new drawing, but this one wasn't a hero in a blue cape or holding a shield bigger than the page. This hero had brown hair tied back, a shirt with a faint red mark on the shoulder, and eyes that looked straight ahead, unafraid. She stood in front of a small boy, her arms spread wide like she could block the whole world if she had to. When I finished, I slid the paper across the table to Mom. She looked at it for a long time, her fingers tracing the outline. Then she smiled, not the tired kind from before, but a real one, warm enough to fill the room. "Let's put it somewhere safe," she said. She taped it to the wall above our bed, where it caught the afternoon light spilling through the window. That night, lying under the thin blankets, I stared at it until my eyes grew heavy. The shadows in the room didn't feel dangerous anymore. Mom hadn't just saved me. She'd ended the storm. I knew they, my grandparents, wouldn't come back. Not this time. The law was against them now, and the people who once looked away had finally seen the truth. As I drifted toward sleep, I heard Mom in the corner, speaking softly into her phone. "Yes," she said. "I still have the box. I'll bring it to the police in the morning. This new case could be bigger than we thought." Her voice was calm, certain, and I realized the storm wasn't over for them. For us, though, it was finally clearing.